Tonight on EWTN Live, we'll learn how an adult faith formation program is bringing together the best Catholic teachers and experts to expand your knowledge of the faith for free. It's a good price, right in your own home, a good place. So please stay with us. Thank you and welcome. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa, and welcome to EWTN Live, where we bring you guests from all over the world. Before we get to our guest tonight, I want to mention that today is the feast of St. Angela Merici. She was born in 1474, and 10 years later, her parents died. She went to live with an uncle in another town. Her sister died while they were there, and she had a powerful experience of the Lord, in which the Lord sent a whole band with her sister of young women to go and invite her to start a community of women who would teach young girls. Now, that had not been done. Nuns went to school, and the wealthy women went to school or got tutored, but the poor didn't get to go to school. She wanted to teach girls where they lived and to help them grow up to be good mothers who knew the faith and knew it well. And so she gave her life over to the service of teaching the church and by helping family life to improve. Now, this is the first order of teaching nuns. It's called the Order of Ursulines today, and she is their founder. It's a great, great feast for us to celebrate. Now, tonight we have a guest who is kind of continuing on the same mission, not just for girls, but for everybody. He wants to fill in the gaps in adult faith formation by giving you a chance to learn from a number of expert teachers in history, philosophy, and theology through the lens of the Catholic faith. It would normally cost hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars if you went to a conference or to a university setting. Instead, these courses are absolutely free, and they can be seen in the convenience of your own home through live and on-demand video seminars and classes, as well as over 600 hours of catechetical programs that they have archived in their media library. Here to tell us more about this great offering and program, please welcome Deacon Sabatino Carnazzo.
Hello, Father.
Deacon.
Good to be here with you.
Oh, good to have you here. I first met you way back in, while you live in Northern Virginia.
That's
I was
right.
visiting over there and got to go over to your parish.
Yes.
And got a chance to meet you as well. We did some talks up there.
That's right, a number of years ago.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah. And this is something that you have now. You're doing this institute. How long has it been in existence?
Well, we've been going on for about 7 years now, 8 years, offering free education to the lay faithful, the highest quality that we can muster.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, this is something of an unusual mission. What got you started doing this?
Well, that's a bit of a long story, but I'll give you the cliff notes.
Okay.
I was raised in a good Catholic home in California.
Like where?
Well, it's the Central Coast area, Monterey, but you know, California is beautiful, but has its own temptations. And as many teenagers do, I walked away from the Lord in my teenage years. I was baptized. I was confirmed as a Catholic. As I said, we went to Mass regularly, but I fell away from the Lord in those teenage years and wandered really far away from Christ and away from the church. And, you know, I tried, I'm embarrassed to say it, but I tried virtually everything the world had to offer for happiness, and that's what the world offers. And the devil offers us these temptations and entices us with things that he wants us to believe will make us happy. And I went down that road.
Did it make you happy?
I'll tell you, I found myself to be one of the most unhappy people in the world, and in a very sad place. The story of the prodigal son really touches me because I think it describes my situation very much. I think, suffice to say,
Wait a minute, did you have an older brother that was complaining about you coming home?
Well, I do have an older brother, yes. And he stayed a little closer to the Lord, thank God, and was there at important times in my life. But I think my story would make St. Augustine blush in many ways. But there, far away from the Lord, when I was 20, 21 years old, and in a very dark place, I met a Jehovah's Witness who challenged me with the faith of my childhood. I still intellectually held on to what I had been taught, what was in my head, but had never made it into my heart. And when I was challenged in that way, I went on a journey. I began a journey of investigation, of discovery, of reading, and asked the fundamental question: was the church which I was raised in, was this the true Christian church? Was what I was taught as a child true? And I began reading the church fathers, and it didn't take long. As you know, it doesn't take long reading the fathers of the church, the early Christians, to realize that the early church was Catholic through and through. I was reading the letters of St. Ignatius of Antioch. The martyrdom of St. Polycarp was a great witness to me. St. Polycarp is an amazing story. And here I found a man who was willing to die for what he believed. And I didn't even have something worth living for. And it was at that point, really a turning point, that I began walking home to my father's house, which took about 4 years of regular confession, going to church regularly. I had a wonderful confessor that just never tired of hearing the same old sins over and over again, until I finally was able to kind of get myself out of there with the help of the Lord. And I began teaching catechism, Sunday school, at the local parish, and discovered a gift that the Lord had given me that I didn't know I had, which was teaching. I began to love to teach the children. And at that point, I owned a nursery and a landscaping company, which I very much enjoyed, but all of a sudden I found something more important in life. I sold all of my landscaping equipment and so forth, and I went on a journey. I traveled from California to Virginia, enrolled at Christendom College, a wonderful college in Virginia.
We do a number of programs from there, and it's just one of a number of really remarkable Catholic universities that are out there today.
It is. It was there that I discovered something about the Catholic faith that I never knew before. And that was really that Christianity, that Catholicism is more than a list of doctrines. It's a way of life. It's an invitation into a relationship. I discovered in my studies that Christ is the Lord of history, that He's the wisdom of the philosophers, He's the revelation of the theologians. He is at the center of our entire life. And it was there at Christendom that I began to realize that I was being called to a new vocation in life, a vocation to share with others that gift that I didn't know as a teenager, the one that I counted as nothing when I walked away from the Lord. And it was really there at Christendom in this discovery of wonder of this relationship of God's love, this invitation into a personal relationship with Him, that I met the parents of a number of the students who I was friends with. They would come. I was an older student. I had returned to school at 25 years old. And they would come and they would say consistently, "I wish I received the education that you're receiving." And I began to ask the question, why not? After 2,000 years, can we not figure out how to deliver the highest quality education, this education that for me was life-changing, completely altering my vision of the world, my vision of life, what my life was all about, where the road to happiness was to be found, why couldn't we give this to the lay faithful in the pews? And there also in my studies, I heard the calling of the church in two important ways. First, I began to study the catechetical documents of the church. Most people, I believe, don't realize that catechesis, from the church's perspective, is primarily for adults. Adult catechesis is the primary form of catechesis. And those aren't my words, those are the words of Pope St. John Paul II. And the National Catholic Directory, Catechetical Directory, says the same thing. It's not that children's catechesis is important, but that the children learn from the adults. And unless the adults have that faith strong, they are not going to be able to deliver to the next generation that gift that is so important.
There's another element too, namely that the way that you can pull the faith together when you're a small child is perfectly adequate for a small child. But as we mature and we need, if we're going to be mature adults, we need to integrate the faith into our growing questions, our growing experiences, our expanding experiences, and deal with the new moral crises that come up because we get older. There are crises of dealing with family, crises of running a business, moral crises in dealing with our politics. And we need that ongoing development of the faith to keep up with the rest of our maturity. And that's one of the things that's key.
And isn't this where we struggle as a church? Most of the time, our children come through pretty good Sunday school programs. But it's usually in their teenage years that confirmation comes. And I've heard, I was the director of religious education for a number of years at a parish in Northern Virginia. And I would hear the parents say to the students, when you complete this class, when you're confirmed, then you can make a choice of whether you want to go on for more catechesis. Of course, we know what the teenagers are going to choose.
Yeah.
Okay. And I oftentimes say, confirmation is not the opportunity for us to choose Jesus, but it's the opportunity for Jesus to choose us. And we do a great disservice to our children when we give them the opportunity to walk away from the Lord at this most critical point when they need to stay close to Him. And it's there that most catechesis ends. And so in the church today, sadly, we have many adults walking around in adult bodies with an adult intellect, but with a spiritual formation of a teenager. And that's a real problem that we face.
One of the things that is certainly a difficult situation today, unlike the 50s, when I was a kid, we had about 85% of Catholics going to Mass every Sunday. Today, it's 30%. So that 70% of Catholics are not going to church. They used to get adult formation in the sermons, and that is not happening. So how do you get the adults to want to learn more about the faith and to see that, like you experienced various crises, people experience a lot of crises outside the faith in terms of their purpose, their meaning. Why am I making this money? Why am I not making more money? All kinds of questions that come up. And what's the meaning of it all?
That's right. What
will get adults to say, yeah, I need to look to my adult formation in the faith?
Well, this is a critical part of our mission and the mission of the new evangelization, which the church is calling us to, that we must present something which is attractive to adults, that's worthy of their attention. And I think too often when we do offer adult formation in our parishes, it's haphazard sometimes, a talk here, a series maybe there, and oftentimes taught by well-meaning people in the parish which are not necessarily equipped to really be drawing on the great wisdom that the church offers us, her history and her philosophy and her theology.
And one cannot underestimate, having also obviously not only grown up in the 50s, but through the 60s and forward. And there were a lot of attempts to modernize our Catholic theology, by which they meant adapt what we believe to what the culture already accepts, and then people will like the faith. That is just not true.
Many of our parents, our grandparents that are in the pews today, sadly were miscatechized, and as oftentimes they received truly wrong information about the faith. And in some ways, I see them as victims of a situation that they went through. We are at a place now where we can offer them the answer to the question you just asked, and that is, where is happiness going to be found? Ultimately, we know that happiness is only to be found in Christ. That is the spark and the seed which our Creator has placed in every human being, especially in the souls of baptized Christians, but in every human being, this desire for authentic happiness, and it's only to be found in Jesus Christ. We have the answer. We have what they're looking for, if we can simply draw their eye and bring them to a place where we can put them into a relationship with Jesus Christ,
Sure.
where we can take His hand and their hand and put them together.
And truly, ultimately, all that we can do is give them reasons to believe. But the relationship that they get with Christ, this is a matter of God's grace.
Yes.
I like to say that saving somebody is a management issue, and God is management. I'm in sales, I can explain the faith and try to deal with some of the questions, but then they must confront Christ on their own and engage in that relationship on His terms.
Absolutely, Father. But I would also add to that this great mystery of God's love. Love is the giving of one's life to the beloved. And God is love. God desires to share His life with us. And we are made in His image and likeness. The one who gives his life, we are called to mirror an image in our own lives. He has made us, as you know, St. Paul says, His hands and His feet. Yeah. And so when a Christian speaks, when a Christian reaches out their hand to those in need, these are the hands and the mouth of Jesus Christ. As He says, you are the light of the world, or you are the salt of the earth. Well, Jesus is the light of the world. But now through baptism, we have been given a great gift. And this is the beauty of the call of the church to the new evangelization,
right.
To really reclaim our identity as Christians made in the image and likeness of God who loves. We have a mission, and that is to be evangelizers in the image and likeness of the great evangelizer. Right? To evangelize means to be a messenger of the good news.
Right.
Jesus is the messenger of the good news. He's the one that brings the good news. We are baptized into Him, and we participate now in His life.
Right.
And so now we are His hands and His feet. When we speak with others, they come into contact with Christ Himself. We have this great gift and really an obligation to the world as Christians, to be His ministers and to be His evangelizers, His apostles.
Well, not unlike the Jehovah's Witness. They have a false teaching of Christ and the Trinity, the false teaching of the Holy Spirit. They deny that the Holy Spirit is God. They deny that Jesus is God. But what they do have is that drive to evangelize, and they raised questions for you.
Yes.
We need to raise better questions and be those people that Christ uses so that He can encounter the souls. One of the other things too, you have a variety of different kinds of programs, correct?
Well, this is what we're talking about now is what the reason we started the Institute of Catholic Culture, is to bring people into a place, into a setting where they can in a friendly setting, in a comfortable setting, encounter Christ and encounter his teaching and his truth, which is life-changing. The Institute of Catholic Culture brings in the best scholars that we have today. Well, you yourself have spoken there, Father, so we know they're the best. To teach to teach the fundamentals of the faith, to teach history from the proper perspective, and that is from God's perspective, that he is the one whose loving hand is guiding the story of history and the story of our lives. And when we see that, we begin to see his loving hand guiding the story of the world. We'll begin to perceive that hand in our own life again. Same as I said with philosophy, to discover again that wonder at God's creation. And when we begin to wonder, then God will reveal himself to us. And so this is what we're seeing at the Institute of Catholic Culture, this opportunity to create an atmosphere in which the Catholic faith can be learned and it can be lived. And this is so important. It's one thing to learn the faith. It's another thing to live the faith. I remember Father Benedict Groeschel, who is a dear friend of both of ours, and he said something beautiful. He said that the knowledge of the intellect needs to be put into the fire of the heart. That was for me so important in my conversion, and it's so important in so many people's conversion.
Sure.
So we give them the truths of the faith, and then we invite them to open their hearts to begin to reform our lives, to live our lives again as children of God.
Now, who are some of the real experts that you have? Because you have a lot of people who are doing regular programs. Whom do you get?
Well, we have, first of all, we offer our programs live in the Northern Virginia area, Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, right near our nation's capital.
Talk about need for
right there.
A Catholic culture.
Yes. And so we use a lot of wonderful scholars from that area. Dr. Timothy O'Donnell, president of Christendom College, Monsignor Charles Pope from Washington, D.C., Dr. William Marshner, one of my favorites. But we also have wonderful scholars that come in to the Washington, D.C. area to speak for us regularly. Christopher Check from Catholic Answers and others. Monsignor Pope, I just mentioned him, is going to be offering a wonderful program coming up during Lent called Ashes to Ashes. And it's an online Lenten retreat that your viewers can participate in, again, free of charge.
See, that's the good price. We like that.
Yes.
We like that. And, this is something that, having this available for people to use, that, and they can download the stuff at their own convenience, as well as, any live participation if you're in Virginia. So they can go online and get all this. How do they do that?
They can go, and your viewers are going to want to grab a piece of paper and a pen and write this down. instituteofcatholicculture.org/join.
Right, so it's instituteofcatholicculture.org. Then put a / mark, join.
That's right, and that's going to bring them to a special welcome to all our EWTN visitor page, so that we can kind of show you around and let you know what we have available.
And this is a great thing that you can do with a lot of young people. A lot of young people don't even watch television anymore. They're online. They're watching things on their cell phones. And, this is something that is good. Also, there's a phone number. Let me read that. It's 540-635-7155. It's 540-635-7155. And people will be able to watch some of these. If you get it at the right time, you can watch the seminar live as it happens.
This coming Sunday, we'll be having a presentation on the presentation for the feast. We'll be having a program on the presentation of the Lord in the temple, a Bible study. We'll have a room full of Catholics and non-Catholics there also, Bibles in hand. Probably over 150, 200 people will be live that night, plus those watching online. They can participate online live and then on demand afterwards. And you mentioned the young people. We also have an Institute of Catholic Culture app for the iPhone, so they can go on the App Store and download our app.
How much does that app cost?
Everything the Institute offers is free of charge.
I like the price.
You want to know why, Father?
Yes, I do.
I don't ever remember Jesus charging anyone to listen to one of his sermons. Do you remember that in the Bible?
Yes, I do.
Never. He never charged for it.
That's right.
And we've been using a business model too long in the church instead of trusting in the Lord and using the model of Jesus Christ. This is what we're about at the Institute of Catholic Culture. And I've heard from people, how can you make something like this work? Well, number one, by the grace of the Lord. He believes, I know he's blessed our work, so he's behind it 100%. And by the generosity of so many that come forward to agree that we've got a crisis on our hands. When we have 30%, did you say 30% of Catholics go to
Sunday Mass?
This
70% do not.
And why? Because they don't realize the gift. If they knew the gift, if they realized the gift, and that's our mission as Catholic evangelizers. That's our mission, is to bring that gift before them and let them taste how sweet the Lord is.
And this attitude shows up in our culture when we see the government doing mandates, that, for instance, on the health care bill, the affordable health care, and that enforcing mandates that are mortal sins. People should go to hell for doing those mandates. And they're trying to force us to do this. The real war on women is being run by the federal government as they continue to attack the little sisters of the poor.
That's right, Father. That's
you know, this is nuts. And people don't go to church, so religious freedom doesn't matter that much because they're not exercising their religious freedom, so it doesn't bother them that the federal government is going after these sisters like a dog after a steak. You know, they're crazy.
We have a program coming up with Father Saunders, Pinches of Incense, when we can no longer give to Caesar what belongs to God. There is a point where we can go no further. But you know, Father, working in the Washington, D.C. area, I run into when we have these attacks come at us, I run into what I call reactionary Catholicism. Well-meaning Catholics who have the next wave of attacks come from the administration or wherever it might be coming from, so-called gay marriage. The next attack comes and we react to it. We should not be reactionary Catholics. We need to be bringing Christ out into the world that is in darkness. And as I oftentimes tell people, if our society is dark, if our society is suffering, we need look no further than ourselves, because we are the ones who have been given the great gift of being the light of the world and the salt of the earth. I love that image of salt, because if you salt food, what happens to it?
Salt dissolves.
The food becomes tasty, doesn't it, with the salt? Well, this is the image Christ is giving us. We are to be the salt of this world so that we can make it tasty with Jesus. But if we go out into our society and it's not filled up with the beautiful flavors of Christianity, if it's not full of Christ, then we need to ask ourselves, are we doing our job as Christians?
That's a good question.
And
all right, we have to take a break. We're going to come back. And again, we want you to check on this website. It's called the Institute of Catholic Culture.org/join. Or you can call them at 540-635-7155. We'll be back in a couple minutes. We want to get your questions and your comments. Please stay with us. Thank you. First, I want to invite you to come here and join us at our beautiful studios in Irondale, Alabama, right next door to Birmingham. If you can come here, please contact our pilgrimage department at 205-271-2966. Or you can go to EWTN.com and they'll give you information about the scheduling of the masses, live programs where you can be part of the audience, and directions on places to stay, places to eat. We have some good food down here now.
Absolutely.
Religiously themed restaurants.
Yes.
Hamburger heaven. And we've got Golden Rule barbecue. And the famous fried green tomatoes from the movie, that's from right here in Irondale. See, the restaurant's still there. So we'd love to have you come and join us and enjoy this area. Plus, go see the sisters. Especially if you're going back and forth, in between wintering up north and coming down to the south. Also, before we go to our question, I want to mention that we have our good friend, EWTN Rome Bureau Chief Joan Lewis, and she has a brand new book. It is called A Holy Year in Rome, the complete Pilgrim's Guide for the Jubilee of Mercy. It'll help you with a lot of information on where to go, what to do, and most importantly, where to eat when you're in Italy. You decide to make a pilgrimage to Rome during the Year of Mercy, so check it out at EWTN's Religious Catalog. And keep in mind, Joan Lewis is on a first-name basis with most of the stones in the city of Rome. She knows everybody, so including the rocks. So definitely get a hold of that. Plus, we have another new book called Praying with Mother Angelica, Meditations on the Rosary, the Way of the Cross, and other prayers. This is available for pre-order now. It will be officially released and shipped next week. So you can go to our EWTNRC.com. That's our religious catalog website, EWTNRC.com. Or you can call them 1-800-854-6316. You can get these books and lots of other materials over at our religious catalog. So get a hold of them if you can. You ready for some questions?
Yes, I am,
Let's
Father.
giddy up.
Sounds good.
We have Joe. Joe, where are you from?
Staten Island, New York.
Oh, I like Staten Island. I gave a retreat over at the retreat house there.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. So what's your question, Joe?
My question is, my family is a bunch of fallen away Catholics, and the further along I get in my Catholicism, the more distant they get from me. How can I start to evangelize them?
Oh.
And I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Oh, Joe, thanks. That's a great question. And a common experience.
Absolutely. That's a great question and also a very difficult one. The Church's teaching on evangelization, especially Pope Benedict, Pope John Paul II, and Pope Francis also, have stressed that the first movement of evangelization, before I can evangelize, I must myself be evangelized. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the caller understands this, how important it is that we first undergo our own conversion. That's number one. We cannot give what we do not have. It's an old philosophical principle you remember from your seminary days.
Nemo dat quod non habet.
That's right. We cannot give what we do not have. And it's so important then that we become well-rooted and well-grounded in the faith. I spoke about reactionary Catholicism. The medicine for reactionary Catholicism is Catholicism. Getting rooted in Catholic history, in philosophy, in theology, calms the spirits when the fight comes. So I would say that's number two. We have to be equipped to be able to give what the other needs. The third one, I think, is the most difficult, and I face this, Father, in my own family, close members of my family that are away from the Church. Jesus, as you said earlier, doesn't always call for me to be the one to bring about the conversion of that person. He's going to take care of that. But he does call me to witness in my life, number one, not always in giving the right answer, But the greatest witness is a lived Christianity, a vibrant and happy lived Christianity. That's the greatest witness. But I think that for us, and I'm sure so many of your viewers are saying, yes, I have members of my family that are fallen away. The Lord may not choose me to be the one to bring about the conversion, the direct conversion of my family members. It may be someone else. I have to be, I think, humble enough and patient enough with the Lord to realize that might not happen on my watch and according to my work, but to be willing to be the one that is the witness. And for me, I always return to the image of my father. My dad is a very faithful man. And when I was far away from the Lord, he never, every time I spoke with him, he always said the same thing at the end of the conversation. Stop what you're doing and come back to church. He did it in a loving way, but he always told me the truth. He always told me the truth. And so I think we need to keep this in mind. We cannot be ashamed of the truth as long as we present it in love and charity.
Something else, too, in the kind of situation Joe is describing, I've mentioned it in past programs, that what I enjoy hunting. And one of the things about that, you don't jump out into the middle of the woods and say, come on, want a piece of me? You'll scare them off.
Yes.
You have to sit and wait quietly and watch. And let them watch the behaviors. Pay close attention to what your relatives are doing and saying. Before you say anything, watch carefully. See what they're doing, what draws them to what's their attraction. And then you watch and see. They will give you a moment of vulnerability. And at that point, bam, get them.
That's right.
Give them a little bit of the truth, and then that goes to their heart. Try for a heart shot. That really gets at what they really need.
And I want Joe to know that the resources through the Institute of Catholic Culture are really directed in this way. Many of our programs are advertised in such a way as to be attractive to a broad audience, to be able to bring that broad audience in, and then once they sit down to learn about a program they may be interested in, the question of evolution. They might be interested in a historical topic, the Crusades, to be able to bring them in at that level. But then when we have them seated and comfortable and happy and learning from somebody that they know knows it, then when you say bam, that's where we plant the seed. That's where we plant the seed of Jesus Christ. And so those resources are there for Joe and for all of the viewers. Really close to 700 hours on virtually every topic that someone could be interested in, related and bringing it to the center, which is always Jesus Christ.
We have a question from the studio audience. Sister, where are you from?
I'm Sister Louise Marie, and I'm from down the road, Casa Maria.
Right here in beautiful Irondale, Alabama.
Well, we were really interested in this topic, and I know you said that you did work mostly with adult education, but we wonder if there's something in the programs for children.
Oh, that's an excellent question, Sister. And I'm gonna just challenge you right back because, over the last 40, 50 years, we have built a tremendous children's education program in the church, a catechetical program. So many of our viewers I know are good, solid catechists. They bring the children in for 1 hour a week, but the problem is it's not that they're not trying hard, and it's not that they're not teaching the faith. But when they go home and in the home, the rest of the week, what was taught in that 1 hour is undone. And here's the real problem that we face. Many of our schools have built whole wings for children's catechesis. We've dumped untold numbers of dollars into children's catechesis. And while children's catechesis is important, the primary educator of the child is the parent. I want to find parishes and priests and clergy that are following the church's teaching on this subject, which is that adult catechesis is the primary form of catechesis, I said earlier. It's not my teaching, it's the church's teaching, which means the primary place for catechesis should be built for adults in our parishes, and by extension for the children. If our parents are frustrated, well, the classes aren't interesting and so forth, where is the formation for our catechists in the parish? Where is the formation for our parents in the parish? And this is why I started the Institute of Catholic Culture, to offer that place, that safe haven, where parents, grandparents, catechists can come and really be challenged with the challenging message of Jesus Christ, to be able to grow in their own formation, and then to be able to do their job, and that is to teach the next generation.
Let's take another call. We have Dan on the line. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Father.
Where are you calling from?
Kentucky, New Hampshire.
Great. Oh, y'all are, what, do you get tired of political commercials so you watch us?
No, that's not true. Well, that's true. We have a lot of that going on through here now.
I'm sure.
The question that I have for the both of you is, how do we reach out to people on the edge of disbelief and have them come back to the church?
Well, Dan, before you go, when you say they're on the edge of disbelief, describe that edge a little bit better. What do you mean by the edge of disbelief?
They're not going to the church. They're sort of drifting away, but they don't know what they want. If you reach out to them, they'll turn you away. If you say something about faith, they discount you. They don't say that they disagree with you, but they won't listen to you.
Mm-hmm. So just they may not have a way of expressing what they don't believe, but they just don't want to hear about faith.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, Dan, in my experience, that we oftentimes try to make an argument for the faith without giving the example of that faith lived. And I don't mean just lived that I'm a pious Catholic who goes to Mass daily. That's not what I'm talking about. Our churches are, pardon the expression, but they must become more than sacrament factories, places where people come and fulfill an obligation. Our parishes have to become safe havens where Christianity is truly lived and lived together in the body of Christ. Those will be participating this weekend on Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. We'll be doing this Bible study on the presentation of the Lord in the temple. And the viewers will see hundreds of people together, but we won't be getting together at 7 o'clock just for the talk. We'll start getting together at about 5:30 for dinner. We sit down and we meet each other. And this is where I think we need to really be focusing much of our effort in the church, to restore Catholic culture, to restore that place where Christianity can be lived out. And then that living out softens the heart. Mm-hmm. Rather than presenting the argument, let's present a place where we can be happy Catholics, where we can be confident Catholics, where we can experience that joy together and that desire together that Dan shares with his friends, that all of us share together, that one desire to find happiness. And that happiness is ultimately going to be found when Christ is standing before us.
You know, one of the things that I've seen at some parishes is the celebration of certain feasts with various foods that go with it.
I love that.
That's very Catholic.
Yes.
So that on the Feast of the Epiphany, Lebanese people make slebe, a type of a donut.
Yes.
And that's only for that day, and it's something that everybody comes for slebe, but you also come to celebrate the Feast of the Epiphany before that at Mass.
Yes.
And there are other, that use of hospitality that the various ethnic communities of Europe, in particular, had developed foods for feasts. I'll bet there are recipes in Italy for presentation. as they get ready for Lent. And
certainly.
And to do things that would be social aspects of Catholicism that are too tasty to resist might get them into the church hall and maybe eventually upstairs to the church.
This is the role of Catholic culture. And we heard the gospel proclaimed today in the church of the word, the seed which was sown on the dry path, that was in the thorns, which was choked out, and then in the good soil. Mm-hmm. And I heard that today. I thought of that soil as Catholic culture. Catholic culture is that atmosphere in which we live, and that atmosphere either chokes the message of Christ, or it cultivates it like a beautiful plant grows in that soil. And that's what Catholic culture does. It cultivates and allows to grow, and it prepares as a seedbed, it prepares the heart to be able to receive that message of truth. So rather than trying to plant the seed in the hard soil, let's till that soil a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think that soil is tilled best in a lived community.
A good example would be a Catholic recovery of Mardi Gras.
Yes.
Polish people, for instance, make pączki, a type of, again, donut, but with jelly and other things inside. Have a pączki, time of coffee and pączki, and then just a little invitation to the church. We do that when we have our food festivals and things. There are ways to bring that Catholic culture that gives distinctive quality, and then, invite people to feel that, yeah, you're back home.
That's right.
You're back home. Another question from our studio audience. Ma'am, where are you from?
Ottawa, Canada.
Good to have you here. That's another pretty city.
Thank you, Father.
And your question?
Yes, what do you have available for Catholics in the area of prayer?
On the area of prayer, well, it's a great time to ask that question because we have coming up the great season of Lent, the journey of Lent. And always during Lent, we offer retreats at the Institute. So we have 2 beautiful retreats that are going to be offered at the Institute of Catholic Culture. One I mentioned earlier, Monsignor Pope, Ashes to Ashes, which is coming up. It's a 2-part series. And then Father Paul Shank, who you may know is big in the pro-life world. Father Paul Shank is going to be coming to speak on uniting our sufferings with the sacrifice of Mary, which I think is a beautiful theme for us, an opportunity to enter into the Lenten season with Mary, to enter into the heart of Mary, and to be able to learn from her how to join her son at the cross. So these programs are available, and if your viewers go to the website again, instituteofcatholicculture.org/join, then they're going to be able to join this effort and to be able to enter in. And again, free of charge, these programs are offered, completely free of charge.
All right, let's take another question. We have Harold on the line. Hello, Harold.
Hello, Deacon.
Hey.
Hello, Father.
Hello,
Where
Harold.
are you from?
I'm from Maryland.
Oh, great, great.
And I just want to say that I'm one of the Deacon's students. I've really been benefited from the Institute's work, and it's really, really increased my faith and just made me a better Catholic. And I just want to thank the Deacon for all his work. And I always look forward to each and every class, and it's just a real blessing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Harold.
Thank you, Harold.
Yeah. And my question for the Deacon is, I would like to know, how can we bring the work that the Institute is doing to our parishes?
Oh, good. That's a good question.
That certainly is a good question. I want to thank Harold, too, because I'll tell you from my own life and my own journey with the Lord how powerful the witness of someone like Harold is. These are real people we're serving, Father. Through the great work of EWTN, their viewers, these are real people. And, I think of Kathy or Ida or John and that come to the Institute of Catholic Culture, Harold, regularly learning, whether it be online or in person. and it's making a difference in their life. And I'll tell you, that makes all the difference in my life. So I'm so thankful for them.
It brings out a wonderful point that all of us who've been teachers know. The more you give your knowledge away, the more it grows. It's not like money. You give your money away, it decreases. Yes. But if you give away your knowledge, the more you do so, the more knowledge grows. And this is a great thing about what you're doing, just like what we've been doing at EWTN.
That's right. There's never, it's just a continuing, it's like the Samaritan woman at the well, this water welling up to eternal life. And what was the result of it? And I think this comes to Harold's question. The result of it was the conversion of the entire Samaritan town, right? They came over the hill, and Jesus says, look at the harvest. And I could just imagine those people coming over the hill. And this is what we all want to do, to be able to bring that great gift that has changed our life to others. And the Institute of Catholic Culture is available for this. We have a number of groups called ICC Encore that are getting together in homes and in parishes.
Institute of Catholic Culture.
That's right.
And on an ICC
Encore.
Encore.
Yeah, and the only thing that people need to do is call our office. We can give that number again, 540-635-7155.
So they call that number and they find out how
we can help them make this happen.
In their parish.
That's right. Every person's situation is a little different. We have a beautiful community of young people in Manassas, Virginia. They said, we can't bring our kids. These are all wonderful pro-life families, a lot of kids running around. We can't bring 10 kids to the church hall for a talk late at night. It gets to be too late for them. So they've been getting together on Saturday afternoons, parents, and they hire some babysitters. They must have 100 kids in the basement, and they've got 30, 40 adults upstairs, more than they can fit in the house now. So this is one way. We provide them with the flyer, we provide them with the program, and all the things they need. We've got a parish in Hawaii that's been running some of our programs. We provide them with an updated flyer with their address on it. And all of this is free of charge. We're here to help because this gift that we have received in our Catholic history, in the wisdom of the great men and women that have come before us, as I said, it changed my life. And I want it to change other people's lives. I want it to be available to them. Sure. And so many of our people don't even know that these great gifts exist. How many don't know the story of St. Polycarp? And I'm telling you, St. Polycarp, you know, Father, what a story. And it was such a powerful witness in my life, and I want others to know about it.
All right. Another caller. Hello, Marianne.
Hi, Father Pacwa. How are you?
Fine, thanks. And what is your question?
My question is for your guest. I have a friend who is a lifelong Catholic who recently has gone over to a very liberal Episcopal church, and her response to going over is, well, at least I'm going somewhere. And her reason for leaving the Catholic Church is that the church is out of step, and I think she's engaged in a little bit of moral relativism. And I'm just hoping some advice from your guest, not to get into a fight with her, but how can I encourage her to come back? Because I really do believe that the church is the rock and it is the one true church, and I don't believe in moral relativism. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thanks. So we have just about a minute or so.
Sure.
So what would you say to her about what reasons to give her?
Sure. The statistics show that most Catholics leave the church and go to a non-Catholic church. Those that become non-Catholics, go to other churches, do so because they're looking for something more. That's simply the answer. They're looking for something more. What have we not given them? And I think fundamentally we haven't given them a place where they can live.
But but in this case, she doesn't like the way Catholics want to live.
Okay.
See, that's the difficulty.
Yes.
That she said, no, you have too many doctrines,
right.
and I suspect what she finds herself more comfortable where the doctrines about sexual relationships, abortion, and contraception, and she doesn't want to live that.
And oftentimes someone like Marianne may not feel equipped to be able to explain these things. This is why it's important that we bring in faithful Catholic teachers who can teach the truth in charity, and that's what the Institute of Catholic Culture provides. So I would invite Marianne and your other viewers to come onto the Institute's website and see what's there. We've got programs on these very topics taught by Father Scalia and other really great teachers.
Oh, yeah, Father Scalia is good.
So please come onto the website and see what we have to offer. Give us a call and we will provide what you need.
Right. Well, we've got to go. I'm afraid that we've just run out of time as it goes by quickly. But thank you very much for the work you're doing there and for being with us here tonight. And may the Lord bless all of you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Again, not only do they give away their program free, so do we. No, we don't charge anybody, any of the affiliates, any of the radios for doing this, but we do need your support. And that's how we've always done this. We've given this network away, but we depend on your generosity to keep us going. So please, as Mother always said, keep us in between your gas bill, your electric bill, and your cable bill for that matter. And we'll be able to pay our bills, especially as we come up with the Pope's visit to Mexico. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you.